Welcome to episode 21 of the Guardians podcast, where we're kind of competitive, but not really, unless a coin flip is involved. Looks like it landed on begin, so let's get started. Alright, so episode 21, Guardians podcast, discussing Overwatch here with my good friend One Eye and myself. It's been a good week. Played a lot more Overwatch. There's been some patches, some balance updates, a new hero, some competitive news that's happening. But before we get into that, One Eye, how's your week been? We played a lot of other games, Evolve, Dead by Daylight. I mean, it's been a pretty eventful week. We got to play some Overwatch. How you been doing other than that?
Other than that, pretty good. In all honesty, it's just been really strange to play other things. Like Overwatch is our home, and it's always nice to come back. Like it's really fun to play with friends. It's a lot more coordinated. It's great, but it's been really interesting getting to play other games. I bought Evolve back at launch, so now that it's free to play and actually has people playing it, that's been a pretty enjoyable experience, especially with the rework. And Dead by Daylight's just really fun. I mean, that's all there is to it. It's rare that I find a game that I actually enjoy solo queuing in. So every now and again, when I have like a half an hour, I'll play a couple games, and it's just really fun. So that's been a good week. It's been a nice change of pace.
It has been a nice change of pace. It has been, and it is nice to kind of get out and try other games. Like, you know, for example, we play Overwatch a lot. We've been playing Overwatch for months. We've been hyped for it forever. I mean, it's such a good game. However, it's nice to experience some other stuff. Evolve is such a great game now that it's free to play, and the things they did to it. Dead by Daylight's a lot of fun to play with friends. You know, you can kill each other in Overwatch, but you can really kill each other in Dead by Daylight. So it's a lot of fun. But like I said, there was a lot of stuff that happened this week, and like we always do, we start off on the competitive / eSports side. E-League and Faceit announced this week that there is going to be a $300,000 Overwatch Open. Qualifying matches will be played on Twitch weekly, starting tomorrow, which is the 23rd of July, and it's going to run through August 25th. And then after that, the regional finals will be September 25th to 29th, with the grand finals following a time shortly after that. And the most important part, they will be televised on TBS and simultaneously streamed on Twitch at the same time. Now, for those of you who follow CSGO, E-League has been broadcasting every Friday evening on TBS for about 2.5 months now. So I mean, it's a big deal. They average about 270 to 400,000 viewers. So I mean, bringing Overwatch onto the television, it's kind of a big thing. I mean, you saw it with Heroes of the Dorm, you know, and some of the regional qualifiers they were doing with Heroes of the Storm, but now they're doing it with Overwatch. And I really feel like Overwatch kind of has more casual potential because people just like shooters. Like MOBAs are very technical, so you're having Overwatch on TBS, like a major network. That's kind of a big thing. I mean, that's got to be exciting, right?
I think it's great. I think it's a really cool concept just to begin with. That's a huge prize pool, and it's something that's going to draw a lot of teams. The only thing I find a little surprising about it is how quickly qualifiers are after announcements. There's not a ton of teams signed up yet, and I'm sure we'll get a bunch by the time they actually go, but I mean, teams more or less had just a few days to sign up. That's the only thing I find strange about it. But I'm excited to be able to sit down in front of a TV and watch some Overwatch. I think it translates better to television because, like you said, MOBAs are so complex and visually they're kind of hard to decipher. Mm-hmm. Like, we have fantastic casters who do the job, and one of the things I love about the internationals, for example, is that they have a new player stream for people who might not really understand the game and what's going on. So, you know, that's always good. But Overwatch, I think, is just really colorful and fast-paced and just has a good home on television. I think it's cool.
It does, and I mean, I already watch a lot of the stuff. My main monitor, my home setup for streaming and playing video games, I have a 28-inch TV, so I'm already pretty much watching everything on TV technically. But I mean, it's awesome to see the production value. My son and I watch every so often the CSGO. I mean, I don't really follow CSGO other than the Cloud9 team, and I mean, so I don't know a whole lot about the game. I've never really played it, but it's fun to watch because you got like Lee Demon Smith and you got other people that are casting. You got Rachel Seltzer Carrico who's hosting, and we got to meet her at Agents Rising. And I mean, the production value is just over the top. And so bringing that to Overwatch and putting it on a big TV, the 55-inch TV behind behind me is going to be just. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm hoping that they expand out if they do a second season of it to include more than just the grand finals on television, because it's a game that people can just watch and enjoy on TV. So, it's going to be cool. But that was the big announcement for competitive events. There was also some results, as there is every week. There's Gosu Gamers weeklies, and with the NA weekly number 16. Nubris defeated One Shot 3-0, so typical names we're used to seeing. The EU Weekly number 16, Reunited defeated Misfits, so again, names you're used to seeing on that scene. The iBuyPower 2016 Overwatch Invitational, which last week we had no idea when it was going to start. Well, it happened last weekend, and it ran through Tuesday, Wednesday. Envious defeated Cloud9 in the finals 3-1, with Code 7 taking third over Luminosity. Interesting to note that there were 3 invited teams, FaZe, Splice, and one other I can't remember off the top of my head. They were invited. They actually didn't even play. So they had to fill those spots with other teams that qualified, like Colorado Clutch, Northern Gaming, stuff like that. But that did happen. And I'm not sure if it got streamed or not, but those are the results. Congratulations to Envious for being victorious over Cloud9. Moving on, the ESL Atlantic EU Showdown Qualifiers number 3. Every week, ESL qualifies 4 more teams for their regional playoffs. This is the big tournament that culminates at Gamescom for the $100,000 prize pool. And this week in the number 3 qualifiers for EU, 2 Strong, BB Esports, Pretz, and Deathmatch Gaming qualified. And then on the North American side, in qualifiers number 3, we had One Shot, Sodi Pop, Selfless GG, and Colorado Clutch qualified. And for those of you who know One Eye and myself, we both live in Colorado. We know the management, the ownership of Colorado Clutch. We know Hamsword, who's one of the more outspoken, colorful players of the team. In fact, One Eye is wearing his Clutch hat as we speak. So I mean,
yeah, Colorado Pride, man. I'm not exactly shy about it. I was really excited when I saw they made qualifiers.
Yeah, I mean, so they qualified. They're moving on. It took them a few chances. They got, they ran into some trouble with those really big rosters, which anybody's going to. I mean, that's why they're the big names. But congratulations to them for qualifying. And so that was the results that happened this week. But we also had a couple of roster acquisitions. First off, yesterday, Nubris, who everybody knows used to be the old team or old Envious Gaming, when they moved on to the new roster featuring Tailspin, the old guys said, "All right, well, what are we gonna do?" So you got Ross, you got Cool Matt, you got those guys that have been together for a while with Envious. They formed Nubris. They are now getting picked up by Fnatic and will be flying under their banner. And it is interesting to note Fnatic is a European organization, so this is their first North American team. So it's really cool that they are taking a flyer on Nubris. They're a really strong roster. I mean, they usually finish near the top. In fact, like we just said, NA Weekly number 16, they defeated One Shot, so they are the champions. So Nubris is now Fnatic. But if you follow along with the Guardians, you know that we have a very beautiful young lady named Tifa, who is one of our occasional hosts, and she was the manager for Gale Force eSports. And if you remember a few weeks ago, Gale Force broke off from the roster, broke off from the organization, and rebranded themselves back to what they were being called before, which was Code 7. And we said it's only a matter of time before they got picked up. Well, we've known this for a couple of days. We knew that there were negotiations going on between a couple of organizations, but in the end, Code 7 got picked up by TSM. So Code 7 is now TSM. TSM Team Solo Mid. Those of you who follow CSGO know they have a really big team. Their Hearthstone team, which is Kriparian and Trump. And then their LCS team. Who could forget that? Bjergsen and all of them. So TSM is now in Overwatch, and they are picking up Code 7, so congrats to them. Congrats to Tifa, who is their manager still. So now she is TSM Tifa, and we wish them the best, and we are looking forward to great things from them. They are constantly top 3 team in the North American side, and so that is amazing.
It's hard for me to not fanboy out too. I love TSM as an organization. I always loved them back season 1, season 2 of League of Legends. I've been following them ever since then. Big fan of their Hearthstone players too. I like the organization a lot, so I'm just super happy for Tifa. I am ecstatic. I could not be prouder. Good job.
Yep. So it's going to be awesome. I mean, we're looking forward to following along. Granted, we do have some insider information usually ahead of time, just because we are good friends with her, and we are kind of like steel traps, so we don't share it until we're told we're allowed to. So we've known this was coming for a couple of days, but it wasn't really final until about 5 hours ago. So congrats to them. There was a lot of content that dropped this week. Most importantly, Ana, the Grandma support sniper, went live officially. She was on the PTR and she dropped on Tuesday, and kaboom, now she's live. You can play her on the live server in quick play, you can play her in competitive play, but I don't know why you do that, because you kind of have to get good at her, but that's just me. How do you feel like did they change anything? Because I feel like they didn't really change anything. They just kind of tweaked. They tweaked a little bit of her animations to make them a little bit faster in firing, but overall, I mean, she's what we've been playing.
Yeah, she feels a little bit cleaned up. It's fun to actually see her hit the live servers. I would say 70% of my games now are Ana Zenyatta for the double supports.
Yep.
That is becoming a very typical lineup. And not surprisingly, she's affecting the meta. I mean, we're seeing a lot of double and even triple tank comps now because Stim just supports that gameplay so well. It's fun to see her hit live. It's fun to see people get their hands on her. I've always loved her kit. I think it has a lot of power, and it definitely is impacting the game in a pretty serious way.
Yeah, and you bring up something interesting with Zenyatta, so we're going to kind of flip the show notes a little bit, and we're going to start with patch instead of community posts. So there was a patch that happened this week, and it started with some character changes. There's some other stuff that One Eye is going to go over here in a minute, but it started with some changes to heroes that were really struggling to kind of keep up, and one of which you'll notice in our overlay right now is Diva. Diva got her defense matrix overhauled. Before it used to be her E, now it's her right click ability. The cooldown was decreased from 10 seconds to 1 second, and a new resource meter has been added to the right hand side of the defense matrix. This meter will deplete while the defense matrix is active and then recharge when it's not in use. It takes 10 seconds to reach a full charge from empty. You can use it at half charge, whatever, as long as there's charge in the meter, you can use it, and at full charge it will last for 4 seconds, and it will now remain active as long as its assigned hotkey is held, which is usually the right mouse button by default. And then there's an option in the settings to toggle defense matrix, so that you can toggle it on and off. You can just click the right mouse button and it'll stay on. You can click it again and it'll turn off. And then Diva's self-destruct, the ultimate cost decrease. The ultimate's cost was decreased by 15%. The explosion delay was reduced from 4 seconds to 3 seconds. And the explosion no longer damages Diva or the player who activates it. So BMOA community, we've already seen it happening in a lot of play of the game. Divas will pop out of their mech and then emote to the enemy team as they fall over dead with their little hearts. So it's cool. Also, Lucio had a sound barrier ultimate cost increased by 10%. McCree now maintains his full damage at longer distance, so therefore he is now a 100% pick again in all competitive games. Mercy's Caduceus staff damage boost will no longer stack with bonus damage provided by a second Mercy. Her Resurrect ultimate charge cost was increased by 30%. Her movement is no longer prevented during activation, so those of you Mercies who felt like your job was to res and die, well, now you can res and run! Yay! And the Guardian Angel instantly resets upon use. Roadhog's Whole Hog ultimate cost was also increased by 45%. Soldier 76's Heavy Pulse Rifle. The spread recovery will begin after a short delay rather than instantly, and his Tactical Visor cost was increased by 10%. And finally, Zenyatta. Zenyatta, who we've been yelling and screaming for 16,000 years, he needed extra survivability, had his base shields increased by 50. So now he rocks 200 total health, 50 health, 150 shield. His primary fire weapon damage was decreased, so he's no longer a sniper like he used to be. His alternate fire weapon damage was increased, so his charge up was increased from 35 to 40 per orb. His Orb of Discord and Orb of Harmony has been increased from 30 to 120, so now it travels even farther or faster when it hits your target. And then Transcendence movement speed is doubled upon activation, and the healing amount is increased from 200 to 300 health per second. So that's Zenyatta.
It's a new meta. It's a new meta, legitimately.
Yeah. I mean, they released Ana, they buffed Zenyatta, McCree, Y, and Diva. I mean, I've had a blast playing Diva. I mean, what are your initial thoughts on these changes to these characters?
I'm kind of with you on McCree that I'm not entirely sure why they did it. I think the reason that they did that is because they hit Fan the Hammer so hard they wanted to give him some sort of power back to his kit. They wanted him to be that long range sniper again that he was before. So I imagine that was the thought process there.
Yeah.
So it's not too bad, but it's definitely McCree's all day again, which it is what it is. Life goes on. We said that if Zenyatta got his health buffed, he would be a pick again. Not necessarily back in the old days of double Zenyatta, double Reaper, or Genji, you know what I mean? But it is not surprising to see him back in meta. He's always had a ton of power. Discord Orb alone makes him worth a pick. So the fact that he can actually sit in a fight now and stay alive, I mean, it's not surprising to see him everywhere. He's been a great support. He just was kind of outclassed in raw stats alone. So I'm happy to see him back. He's a support I've always enjoyed playing. I always loved his skins. I think it's kind of a fun thing to do, you know. Robot Monk, it's a good time. So I'm glad to see him back in the game. And then as far as Diva is concerned, it is insane. I mean, we see her almost 2 Divas a game sometimes, if not more. She just does so much now. Before, she wasn't necessarily a tank. And what I mean by that is she played more of a flanking role. You'd use your booster to get around, get on their squishies, use your double cannons to gun them down, and then use your defense matrix cooldown on your escape. But you never really were that damage soak component to your team. You know what I mean? So you couldn't really solo tank with her. Now that Defense Matrix is resource-based and it's not some massive cooldown, you can constantly be soaking up damage when you need to. And that literally makes her playable as a solo tank. I almost am at the point where I like her more than Reinhardt.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's crazy. You really didn't think that a simple change like that would impact her so much, but she feels wildly different now. She feels incredibly strong. As far as her ult is concerned, too, it's a nice change. It always felt really punishing as Diva to lose your mech. I mean, it's obviously supposed to be punishing, but it always made you feel almost worthless just because, oh man, I'm never going to charge that self-destruct. I'm never going to get there, you know what I mean? And you actually get them off now. And that 1 second time difference is incredibly deadly. I know in streams this week, you and I were talking that it's super hard to dodge now. There was replays and plays of the game where my corpse would fall behind a door, you know what I mean? If it was 4 seconds, I would have lived, and if it was 3, you know, I barely got nicked, and down I go. Yep. So Diva is just the tank to beat right now. She is in almost every single game, and it's funny to see her there. I like it. I welcome our new Diva overlords.
Yeah, right. Bow again, and just coincidentally, she's Korean too. So welcome our Korean over queen. You know, I hated the old Diva. I saw her at BlizzCon when she was unveiled. I went, oh my god, she's amazing. I tried her out, oh my god, she's trash. And everyone else went, you know what? She can't really play as a main tank. You have to use her as a bruiser. She doesn't really last that long. I could never figure out how to use her because I would always burn my defense matrix, and then the enemy would pop their ultimate. It's like, great, now I'm out of my mech, and now I'm dead. I cannot stop playing her. This new configuration, I can't stop. It allows me to be super aggressive. It allows for these speed rush comps where you can use her as a solo tank and you can run, you know, Ana or Zenyatta with a Lucio, you know, with a Tracer, with a like you can just run this super speed comp and you can blitz assault maps, you know, Volskaya and whatnot as long as your team's all on the same page. I mean, you could just finish games incredibly fast. I think there was a game, and I can't remember if you were with me or not. It might have been me and another guy before we started the stream. We finished a Temple of Anubis in 1 minute and 24 seconds because we just blitzed the first point, overwhelmed them, blitzed the second point before they really had a time to set up with a Diva, a Lucio, an Ana, and then we had just like 2 Tracers, and you know, I don't remember who our 6th was, but we just blitzed the point. They didn't even know what hit them, and it was just like, okay, awesome. So, I mean, yes, there are still problems with choke points on these kind of maps, but Diva kind of throws the whole meta on its head. Zenyatta just throws this meta on its head, and then you have McCree who has no damage fall off. Bye-bye Pharah meta. You know, it was nice knowing you, but
rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace. Rest in pepperoni. So, I mean, these changes I really like. I gotta say, it's probably my favorite patch so far right now. And it's also because of other reasons. There are other patch notes. Why don't you go ahead and cover those?
Yeah, as far as general updates are concerned, gameplay, they changed the way that overtime works. If it lasts more than 20 seconds, the fuse will now start to burn down more quickly. So what that means is when we're in matches now where we used to have like 2-3 minute overtimes because you're waiting for that timer to burn down and then it refreshes and then it burns down slowly and then it refreshes. That doesn't happen anymore. If the overtime lasts for 20 seconds and a team is pushed off, it pretty much goes down instantly now. It's a lot faster. So we don't have those super long drawn out overtimes anymore, as well as players respawn slower during overtime, once again to sort of really just close out the game. As far as competitive play is concerned, one huge change, and we'll talk about this in the show too, because Kaplan went over it in an interview, is that competitive play matches now have a one hero limit, so there's no more stacking. It's a little bit interesting, and like I said, we will cover it later, but Blizzard before said that they, thought hero stacking was healthy for the game, and now they're saying maybe not, we're going to experiment with it a little bit and see how it goes, but generally it seems like people like the change. That was something the competitive players seemed like they wanted a lot, so that's in. Now, as far as miscellaneous things are concerned, Anne has been added as an AI-controlled hero in practice versus AI, as well as play versus AI in custom modes. Timing on Zenyatta's rapid Discord achievement is more lenient and not as strict. Targeted teammates now respond by saying, "I'm with you," when players use the group up communication. And renamed 5 sprays to avoid duplicate file or titles within the selection. As far as hero balancing updates, we pretty much covered all of those too. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and the big main change is that self-healing abilities now do charge your ultimate abilities. So like, Roadhog self-heal.
Yep. That's the big one.
Yeah, that's the big one. I mean, Soldier's got his as well, but usually when he's healing, he's firing, so that's also going to charge his ult meter when he hits people. But there also was another patch that happened yesterday. It was kind of a ninja patch. In fact, for those of you who were watching my stream yesterday, you'll notice that, and One Eye stream as well, as he was streaming yesterday, we had to take the client offline for like a minute just to apply this 150 meg patch, and it's pretty much just focused around competitive play. They fixed some bugs, but the main changes are in competitive play, attacking teams now have 4 minutes to capture the first point on assault. It's down from 5 minutes. And then under miscellaneous, to go along with the sprays and player icons, the "You Are Not Prepared" spray and player icon is now available for all the players. So that's pretty much it for the patches. There were 2 patches this week, the Ana patch and then just the kind of competitive balance patch. But as One Eye said, there was also an interview that Jeff Kaplan conducted. He did an interview with Nathan Grayson from Kotaku. And pretty much it was just kind of a Q&A, and in typical Jeff Kaplan style, he talked forever. He provided a ton of information. Some of that information is the decision to switch to one hero limit in competitive play. And it was driven by the community's feedback from playing the competitive mode on the PTR and desiring that one hero limit format in the competitive play. Pretty much he said, we kind of felt like Overwatch was the ability just to adapt, but the community's feedback since we made this change has been so positive that we figured, we'll give it a shot. The good news is if the move ends up not working out, it leaves the door open to remove the hero limitation. But, as I said, the community response initially has been very positive. Kaplan also talked about the challenge of balancing quick play with competitive to keep them separate, but not too different. The original ranked concept was 6 versus 6 teams only, and there was no ability to queue with less than a full team, even though it felt more Overwatch, as he said. The development team realized it punished those without teams who wanted to queue for a ranked mode, but since the original mode, or the original system they had, didn't allow for it, they scrapped that. He was asked a follow-up question on whether or not they're going to separate the modes, and he responded that, in other Blizzard games, they've had the solo queue and then they've had the team queue, and it kind of really, team queue doesn't get used a lot. I mean, solo queue, teams will queue into that just because it's already there, and he said it's kind of like a 20-to-1 usage ratio. It just doesn't happen, but it's something that they're looking at. He discussed how fond the Overwatch team was with the original beta concept of competitive that rewarded time invested with climbing those initial ranks, but then once you hit a certain upper echelon level, the skill levels came into play and you can rise and fall with those ranks. he said he was kind of disappointed that the community really was so negative about it before they really had a chance to kind of test it out outside of closed beta. Again, because the community responded so negatively, they designed our current skill rating system that was 100% based on your skill compared to your peers, and that's where we see the 1 to 100 skill rating system. But there are changes coming down the pipeline for competitive play in Season 2 regarding tweaks to skill rating calculations, and they're almost 100% certain they're removing the coin flip with sudden death. It's looking
Thank
like,
you.
yeah, right. It's looking like they might test out an if you can't win, then you tie approach. I'm not sure I'm okay with that. These first couple of questions and answers that focused on competitive. What are your thoughts on what he shared and the direction they're taking Overwatch and the direction it came from that a lot of people didn't see when it was in closed beta?
It makes sense that they're testing out the hero cap limit. Personally, I was never wildly fond of it, purely based off of the conceptual standpoint of it. The fact that this is Overwatch, it's supposed to be kind of weird team comps and people switching and things like that. But if hero limits are what people want, and that's what the tournament format is switching to as well, then that's probably the way competitive goes. So that makes sense that they're willing to test it, and I also do like that they're keeping an eye on it. I could not be happier about them considering just flat out removing coin flip. Mm-hmm. I think it is really, really terrible on assault maps. I think the timer adjustments have helped a lot, but I don't think it fixed the problem. Like, it's inherently broken, so no amount of polish is going to fix it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm glad that that's getting nixed. That's been a huge problem for me as far as competitive is concerned. I find it interesting hearing about the beta concept of ranked versus what they implemented, because I didn't necessarily feel that big of a difference between it. I guess that's probably due to the fact that it felt so terrible in beta that we just didn't play it at all. But yeah. I felt like that was more based off of how the community was handling it and how people were treating it and the constant leaving than it was the system itself. But that's also my opinion. Yeah. I don't think the current system's perfect, but as far as like a first-person team-based shooter is concerned, I think it functions. I think it's not terrible, and I think it's totally playable. I like it. I think it's good. Yeah. And then as far as balancing competitive and casual separately, I think that's a really almost dangerous idea. I can understand balancing PC and console different just because mechanically people play them differently, you know what I mean? You're not necessarily going to have the same functionality and settings that you would on a console versus a PC, you know what I mean? So that makes sense to me, but balancing casual versus competitive seems like maybe taking it a step too far. I mean, there's no reason that somebody who is playing quick play, right? They just got the game, they're enjoying it a lot, they want to start getting competitive. I mean, it feels punishing to them, you know what I mean? It feels like players who want to do both have to learn 2 metas and 2 lists of balancing. You know what I mean? It doesn't really seem like a good answer in my mind. And admittingly, that could just be coming from my MOBA background and seeing so many different companies balanced in so many different ways. But it just seems like butting heads. It's like splitting the community too deep, in my opinion. But, you know, I trust Blizzard a lot. Kaplan's always been really straightforward with us about the things they're doing. They've always, I mean, even here, talk about how much the community's feedback directly impacts the decision they made with competitive and how matchmaking's working. So even though I'm a little nervous about some of those things, I have enough faith in the team that I'm not too scared.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I'm also, you know, a MOBA guy. I didn't like the original competitive concept when we tested it out in closed beta just because it was a lot like Hero League and Heroes of the Storm, which I really didn't like either. You know, where they had the rank 50 to rank 1, and if you grinded it out, I mean, they had these stats that as long as you played enough games and you had a 37% win percentage, you would hit rank 1. You'd hit the upper echelons. And then, you know, the community responded negatively, and they changed it, so now they have the Grandmaster system, yada, yada, yada. With the Overwatch closed beta, I mean, you just grinded it out games, and it wasn't really skill. It was just, I just got to win. I just got to win. I just got to keep playing games. You know, if I lost, well, now I got to win. You know, it just grinded it out to hit the upper levels. And yes, they did have the top 100 players in beta that hit that top master / hero tier. But I mean, what about the other people that aren't top 100? I mean, everybody's just going to ultimately conglomerate up at the top. I mean, they're just all going to meet there. And this new system, I like it because it assigns us a number. I mean, it's not perfect. It's not like an ELO number or an MMR number like you have with League of Legends, but at least there's a skill number. I think it's a little
works.
yeah, it works. I think it's weird because you have 1 to 100, and the highest ranked person is, I believe, Harry Hook, who is like rank 87 or 88. I mean, like, why do you have 1 to 100 if it only goes up to 88? Like this bell curve they have going on. I think it needs to be like more of a slope where you have like 40% of the community is X to X, and then it goes up, kind of like what League does, kind of like what Dota does with their ELO system and their numbers. So I like the changes. I think they're going in the right direction, but I don't necessarily know if they're there yet. So we'll have to see. And the one hero limit thing, I mean, I was against it until I saw Envious bust out a 4 Diva stall comp on point B of Hanamura, and they just stalled out for 4 minutes and just rushed out, and they said, okay, now you go, okay, now you go, and they just like timed their divas with 4 of them so that they're just constantly contesting, and they had a Reinhardt and a Soldier 76 up on the left balcony, and they just stalled out the enemy team in scrims, and it's like, oh yeah, you know what, this isn't really creative, this is just like cheesy. And so once I saw that, I was like, well, I'll give one hero limit a shot. And unfortunately, I haven't played competitive this week, so I haven't had a chance to try it out. Hopefully next week we'll be able to test it out. But I mean, it shows that the team is listening, and they're trying stuff to give us the best possible experience in the game. And I like that. So, but in the interview, Kaplan also discussed the hitbox issues that people were having and why they seemed so large on some characters, namely Widowmaker and Hanzo. Even though people were finding these super crazy times when shots were landing with no vision of the enemy, he brought up the point that Overwatch is a fast-paced shooter, and the chances of those situations occurring in live play were very minimal. And he also raised the point that when the community was discussing hitbox issues, it almost always was from the angle of, this is so unfair, large hitboxes take the skill out of the game, and not from the angle of, as the shooter, I feel like the large hitboxes helped me land some of my shots and gave me an unfair advantage. It was always the other side. And from a developer standpoint, they pretty much have discounted almost all of the videos that people were posting when they're standing still in the training room and they're going, millimeter by millimeter to just determine when the hitboxes actually hit. The one exception was there was a video that came out about a month and a half ago, and it was a Hanzo headshotting a Widowmaker on the roof of the beginning of Dorado. Hanzo had no vision of her. He was just firing arrows and happened to hit her with a headshot, even though he couldn't see her. The lead gameplay engineer, Tim Ford, said it really bothered him that a shot like that could happen, but he did know how to fix it. And he went back to the drawing board, and the developers are kind of changed and tweaked some of the hitboxes so they weren't so big. But I mean, for a while, there was an issue with Hanzo's just like randomly firing scatter shots, and you're just kind of like in the area where the wind would hit you and it would kill you. And you're like, what? Like, especially like on the lower characters like Zenyatta and Tracer, it was just like, you know what? This Hanzo just scatter shot at a wall and I died. Like, it was becoming kind of an issue, but only on certain characters. I mean, and it's cool that they're addressing it, but you can't deny that there was an issue with it as well.
Oh, a big issue, especially when we're talking Hanzo. I can think of multiple instances where both of us have gotten just completely wrecked by Scattershot. And I think also it's kind of intrinsically an issue with Scattershot in that it is so RNG based, it feels really rewarding for Hanzo to use. And like when it hits, you're just like, oh man, awesome, sweet. RNG, awesome, this is great. But when you're the person who gets hits, there's no real counterplay to it, you know what I mean? So the fact that I think they're addressing the hitbox issue, especially with Hanzo specifically, is a good sign because nobody likes that feeling. And I think one of the big things that makes Overwatch shine is that it feels like it's developed with a pro-fun view in how they develop it. You know what I mean? Like they don't want there to be unfair interactions. They want everybody to be enjoying it, even if you do, die or lose a game. So I think addressing things such as random hitboxes and people just taking headshots from around corners without actually getting hit. I mean, nobody wants to deal with that in a game.
No, and it was an issue. And I mean, I'm glad they're taking steps to kind of lower the hitboxes on some of the projectiles from the weapons. But I mean, that's kind of what Overwatch is. It's fast paced, and I mean, one of my friends who plays a lot of CS:GO and Unreal Tournament and stuff like that said, you know what, this game feels very slow and tactical. But once he got his hands on it for more than like a match or two, he said, yeah, there's a lot of like fast paced action, especially on King of the Hill and Assault maps. Yeah, a lot of teams take their time setting up, but you're just running around and firing. As soon as you see a red name, you're just shooting, and it's like, sometimes you're not going to hit if the hitboxes are small, especially with the tick rates being so low with Overwatch. And I see where they're coming from, and I'm glad that they're taking steps to address kind of the disparity between, shooter and shootee. But Kaplan was also asked about new levels and game modes, because that's kind of one of Overwatch's selling features and Blizzard's as well, as they love to bring new innovative stuff to their games. And Kaplan confirmed that there are new levels and game modes in the pipeline. Some of them may never see the light of day because of the craziness and inability to properly balance them, but some of them will come out soon, in Blizzard speak. The main priorities that the development team look for when designing new levels or a game mode are, number one, is it fun? And number two, can we get internal testing as close to a 50-50 win rate for both sides as we can? If a level can get a 48-52 or a 53-47 win rate split, then that's good. But if it's more like 60-40, which is what Volskaya was showing when they made the change to the attacker spawns, because the attackers were winning 60% of the time, then they'll reevaluate and tweak mechanics like they did with Volskaya, or they'll scrap it entirely. And he did confirm there are some maps they're working on right now that realistically we're never going to see them, and they're not going to make it into the game just because they're so snowbally one way or the other, and they're just not fun. And finally, the community is digging on Ana, the newest hero in Overwatch. When asked about a release schedule for new content, Jeff replied that ideally it would be amazing if they could release one feature or map or mode or hero every month, but they find it more fun when they can just say, here's something fun we're working on, enjoy, wink, and much like what happened with Dorado getting added in a patch out of nowhere during the closed beta. I remember a patch happened, we logged in and we're like, what is a new map? Holy crap, or something like there's a bunch of new skins this month that we're working on here. And in a perfect world, they'd be able to accomplish that to keep the game fresh. But he did say they don't want to tie themselves down to a quote-unquote MOBA schedule where the community is expecting something like 80-plus heroes and 15 maps before the game is really fun and enjoyable, which a lot of MOBAs suffer from. A lot of people still compare Overwatch to a MOBA, even though it's like a first-person MOBA. But I mean, I like to see new stuff. I like to see new content, and Blizzard has had a habit of releasing new stuff and getting rid of old stuff, or doing a map rotation like they did with Heroes of the Storm when they got rid of Haunted Mines, and they've got the map rotation going. And Evolve is doing it too. We saw that when we were streaming it too. They have 4 maps that they have on a weekly rotation, and it just rotates. So I mean, if Overwatch gets 680 maps, as long as they're rotating it on a map rotation, I think it's cool. I mean, what are your thoughts on this interview?
What I thought was interesting is they kept highlighting specific things throughout the entire interview, and specifically in this section, what Kaplan said was that he didn't want to put a specific time frame on anything that was coming out, but that he expected it to come out sooner than people were expecting. And I thought that was interesting because normally Blizzard says the exact opposite whenever they're talking about scheduled content. They're like, who knows when it's coming? We really don't want to commit because we don't want to get yelled at. And when we look at Ana, she kind of dropped out of nowhere. Blizzard was like, hey, check it out. Look, Ana's coming out. By the way, she's on PTR, and she just comes out next week. Go with it. Don't worry. You know what I mean? So it really gets me excited because they've been talking about vertical maps that they've been balancing, and that out of the new maps, at least one new game mode will be featured. So, I mean, we are talking about maybe seeing a new hero by the end of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a couple new maps in a game mode by the end of the year tied in as well. I think it's awesome. And then as far as the whole MOBA locked in and the schedule like that, I agree entirely. I think a MOBA-like schedule where we're talking about heroes getting released 1 to 2 times a month, right? I think it would kill the game. Mm-hmm. One of the things that really is nice about Overwatch is it doesn't have that huge learning curve. You don't have to sit there and learn every hero. Generally, you can look at Reinhardt and you can be like, oh, I kind of get a feel what he's going to do. And even then, it's only like a 21, 22 hero roster. So if you want to go in-depth, there's not that much to pick up. So I think it's good that they're going to slow down, not rush it, see how it goes, and just let the pieces fall where they do.
Yep, yep. So I mean, it was a good interview. A lot of information that we had coming down the pipeline. Another thing that's going on this week, for those of you who are mega nerds like myself, San Diego Comic-Con is going on. It's the pre-stuff started yesterday and the day before. I actually have a friend that's there right now enjoying it. But one thing that came out of that is there was an announcement between Blizzard and another company over a partnership concerning some of their stuff. One Eye, why don't you tell us what that is?
I was really excited because, sorry, 1 second, there's a dog bark.
That's
Blizzard announced that they are partnering with Dark Horse Comics and that they're going to be bringing new Overwatch comics into the works. So first off, the smaller news is that Dark Horse is going to be taking over Blizzard's online comic distribution, the ones that they've been doing, like the Junkers, things like that. And the first one that they did it with was Old Soldiers. So you'll be covering that, but that's the first thing that they're really releasing. And then the big news coming with it is that not only are they doing an art book, which is going to be sweet. I love Blizzard art books. I have the large one from Barnes & Noble. I have the ones from the special editions of StarCraft. But they're also doing a 100-page graphic novel. And for those of you who follow me on Twitter and interact with me, I'm actually a relatively large comic nerd. I love Image. The header for my Twitter is from one of their publications. I love graphic novel. So the fact that they're going to take Overwatch, which has this deep lore, this really enjoyable lore that we've already been getting to explore with these sweet online comics, I mean, we're getting a solid graphic novel, man. I can't wait to buy it. I can't wait to just have it on my coffee table. You know what I mean? I'm foaming at the mouth for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I'm, you can't see me because of the streaming software, but I am holding up the Art of Blizzard Entertainment, the Barnes & Noble thing you were talking about. I myself have a
awesome.
copy. Yeah, I got it next to me, right next to my Marvel stuff, all my Funko Pops that are up on the wall. I mean, I cannot wait for these two books to come out. Like you, I love graphic novels. I love Image. I've got, Saga and Velvet and Glory right next to me. I mean, Saga is amazing. Dark Horse does amazing stuff. They brought out Hellboy. I mean, you're talking about this amazing company partnering with Blizzard, and they're taking it over. And like you said, the first comic that they were releasing is an upcoming comic at the time called Old Soldiers. Now, that was released yesterday, and it revolved around Ana. And it starts out with Soldier 76. He's on a mission to find the mysterious Hakim, who has put a massive bounty out on an unknown sniper that has been causing his criminal operations some issues. Along the way, Soldier finds Hakim's compound, but runs into Reaper, who gains the upper hand during an ensuing fight. As Reaper is about to deliver the finishing blow, a poison dart strikes him in the shoulder out of nowhere, and a healing dart hits 76 in his right arm, thus, reviving him. Suddenly, Ana appears from the shadows on a ledge above them and urges 76 to get back in the fight, yelling, "Get in there, Jack," which, hints to us she knows who that is, 76 being Jack Morrison, the ex-commander of Overwatch. Reaper suddenly appears behind Ana on the ledge, but she quickly turns and hits him square in the chest with a sleep dart, and as he falls to the ground, she can't believe what has happened to him. I mean, she says, "What have they done to you? You look awful." And as Reaper is passing out, he tells her to never forget that the three of them, meaning Reaper, 76, and Ana, were left to suffer and die at the end of the Overwatch initiative. 76 points out that he thought Ana was going to legitimately kill him and that he had been looking for her, and she responds that he's always been so hard-headed, and she cares about him, she cares about his well-being, she doesn't care about his war, but she wants him to be safe, so she's going to be there to watch his back from here on out. And as the comic ends, Ana asks Soldier 76 what he plans to do when the war is over. He remarks that he's a soldier and that means his war is never over. And the final page of the comic is an older picture of Ana Amari, which is Farah's mom, Gabriel Reyes, who is now Reaper, and Jack Morrison, facing the camera during the heyday of the initiative before they became what they currently are. And the art style was different. It was less like internal Blizzard art and more like what you would expect to see from, smaller studios in Marvel or Image. Like what you would see with Velvet or Dark. I mean, it was more comic-y feel. It felt very comic-y. And it was a good story. I mean, I liked it. I thought it felt a little kind of the pacing was weird because it was only like 10 pages like every other comic, but the pacing was odd, but the art style was beautiful, and it showed that Dark Horse could really hold their own writing these comics. So I mean, I don't know if you've seen it yet. It did come out like last night, and like I always do, I had to see it immediately, and I read it again today. But I mean, it was cool, and more importantly, the cover art was what everybody thought Somber was going to be. You know, it's one of Anna's skins in the game, and I don't remember what the name of the skin is. I purchased it. It's one of her epic skins, but I mean, it was a good story. It was cool. You know, and it told the three kind of old soldiers, three of the six founding members of Overwatch, and what they ended up becoming. And it introduced us to Anna in comic form. So it was pretty cool.
I read it. It actually sounds like somebody's sawing outside. I'm going to try to be quick and abuse my push to talk here. But, so my apologies. But my favorite thing about the entire comic, and really the thing that made it for me, was the very last panel. Because the very last panel of the comic was a single photograph with Reaper, 76, and Anna back before all of that nonsense happened, back when it was just the three of them and founding of Overwatch. So seeing that picture and seeing them together, seeing them young and happy, it really just sort of tied everything that happened in the comic together. As far as like a first publication with Dark Horse taking over, I enjoyed it a lot. I actually ended up reading it twice today.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good comic, and again, it continued what Overwatch or what Blizzard and the Overwatch team had been doing, and it just kind of they have so much on their plate, and Dark Horse said, "Yeah, we're so excited." And so that was kind of like it was announced before San Diego Comic-Con even began, and everyone get excited about it. Namely, the people who love graphic novels and love the art. I cannot wait to have that Art of Overwatch book next to my Art of Blizzard book. It's going to be epic. But like we do every week, we do a community spotlight where we pick 1 to 3 things. And this week, there is a community spotlight. There was a video that was shared on Twitter, and then it was also shared later on Reddit. And it was called, so this is basically Overwatch, by a YouTube channel called Jello Apocalypse. And it's pretty much just kind of like a satirical, so this is Overwatch. You know, back in the day, in 20-aught past, humans were like, oh, you know, we're going to fight. And then in the 20-aught future, robots take over, and they're like, oh, we're so evil. But then humans, who called themselves, and the whole thing was like, so this is Overwatch when humans were fighting. So this is Overwatch when robots ruled the world. So this is Overwatch when humans were like, we're not going to take this robot's crap anymore. And I mean, it's just this funny little video, and I'll link it in chat, and we'll add it to the video description and the stream description, and you guys can check that out. But I mean, it's a fun little video, and it just shows what the community can do when they have enough free time on their hands to show their love of Overwatch. You know, it was a funny little video, and
I thought it was great.
Yeah,
I really did. I ended up watching all of his, so this is basically blank video immediately afterwards.
Yeah.
But I know one thing from the video that I will be abused is that I will definitely be referring to Bastion with female pronouns.
Yeah.
That was my favorite joke from the whole thing. Well, are there girl robots? What do they look like? Is Bastion a girl robot?
Yeah.
Like, I thought the video was hilarious. It reminded me a lot of, like, the Honest Trailer series. I thought it was really well done. And for the record, all of his others, so this is basically blank videos, were really entertaining, too.
Yeah, and I haven't had a chance to check those videos out, but I definitely will, and I urge you guys who haven't seen it yet, go check out. So this is basically Overwatch by Jello Apocalypse. Type it into the YouTube search bar. It's a lot of fun to watch. That just about wraps it up for this week, unless you have something that you wanted to cover. If not...
I did real quick. It's unfortunate that the sagging's going on, so I will try to be as fast as possible.
That's okay.
But next week, we are doing a big overhaul of the Multitap podcast. We have some big things in the work that we'd really like people to see. So if anybody wants to come check that out, we do those Wednesdays at 10 Central, 9 Mountain, over at twitch.tv/multitap. And next week's episode, in honor of his recent anniversary, is going to be an entire episode based around the Blue Bomber himself, Sonic. And we have some fantastic talent lined up for that I think people will want to come see. As well as the 2 quick things that I also wanted to plug for Multitap was Mr. J Dubious over on Dubious Reviews has been doing a series called NES Chronology. where he is going through all of the NES library in chronological order, which is quite a daunting task. He's trying to do daily uploads with it, and he's been doing a pretty good job. And he just finished the Black Box games, so check that out. And then also, Rewind Mike is doing his Konami series, which is absolutely fantastic. It features a lot of people from the multi-tap roster. I highly recommend giving that a quick peek, too.
Very nice. Yep. And I will probably be watching the Sonic podcast just because I was the Sega kid growing up. I played a lot of Nintendo. I had a Nintendo, but when the quote-unquote next-gen Super Nintendo and Sega came out, I had a Genesis. So
Blast processing.
Yeah, I will be checking that out and make sure you guys check it out. So, Mr. Streamer, now, where can people find you at when you are not doing the Guardians?
When I am not doing the Guardians, you can always find me at Twitter over at NA1I. And then I have also gotten myself streaming now when you're streaming during the day. So you can find me streaming on my channel over at Twitch TV/HOTS1I, HOTS1I. And as far as streaming schedule is concerned, it's the exact same as Veritex. We stream together, and I might be adding some few late night streams with the multi-tap guys as well. We've been talking about that, so we'll see if that ends up panning out. But at the very least, those are the two places you can find me.
Very nice. And again, you can find the Guardians here Friday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. You can find us at Twitter at GuardiansOW for Overwatch. Again, that's GuardiansOW. You can find us streaming live every Friday night, as I said, YouTube.com or on Twitch TV/VeritechGG. On YouTube side, if you just search for Veritech or follow me at VeritechGG on Twitter. I also tweet out on me or 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 minutes from beginning. The YouTube link, because YouTube is awesome and allows us to have individual URLs. But, I mean, you could find me streaming 5 days a week. I might go back to my 7-day-a-week schedule. You never know. And again, that's youtube.com/VeritechGG, gaming.youtube.com/VeritechGG, or Twitch TV/VeritechGG. I have plenty of resources. I like to pass them around. And for those of you who are listening, who are not following live to the live stream, you can you can hear us on iTunes and Google Music. Just search for The Guardians. We are one of the top results. I typically try to upload this almost as soon as we are done live streaming. But that ends episode 21 of The Guardians. For One Eye and myself, Veritech, we are saying we will see you next Friday. Stay safe.